If you're interested in the so-called stucco issues down in the Lowcountry, I have got Scott Frieden here with Hindsight Home Inspections, and he's going to explain the whole thing to you. So stay tuned. Okay, I am back with Scott Frieden, who's actually sponsoring this video, Hindsight Home Inspections. And we do a lot of work with Scott on home inspections. He also has a terrific vendor list. And today's topic is going to be stucco. So I'm going to let you do a lot of talking on this. When I got here, the stucco in Sun City was a real problem.
That's right.
Because it was improperly applied. But I'm not aware of big stucco issues elsewhere. But I don't own a toolkit, so you go ahead.
So stucco exteriors are extremely common here. And I want to kind of go over how stucco works, how it's supposed to be installed, its pros and cons, that kind of thing. So first off, stucco as an exterior siding has been around for about 9,000 years, believe it or not.
Yeah, really?
Greeks, Mesopotamians, that kind of thing. So now it's changed over the years, obviously. But if you imagine stucco as a force field around your home, it truly is. Now, stucco is non-permeable, so water can't get through it unless XYZ could happen, right? Installation that you mentioned.
Right.
So installation, flashing, doors, windows, wall penetration.
So you got to seal it in.
You've got to make sure it's sealed.
Okay.
You can't let any water get behind the stucco. So stucco it's a three layer component, right? So you have, I'm just going to walk through this really quick.
Sure, that's
right?
fine.
So the exterior of a wooden structure house has a big wooden sheet, right?
Right.
It's known as wall sheathing. And on top of that wall sheathing, we install a barrier to protect that wood. It's called a vapor barrier in this case, okay? Now on top of that vapor barrier, we're going to install a type of screen. It's called lath. L-A-T-H, lath.
Okay.
All right, and that's the first kind of stage of the stucco. And the first stage onto that lath is just going to be a Portland cement. All right, minimum 3/8 inch thick. And after that dries, we have another layer. It's going to be called the base coat. And that base coat, or brown coat, some people refer it to, that's a big, thick structure. Right?
Okay.
It's got to be floated, and that's where some of the problems could be improperly installed. Right. Over that, we have the finish coat. That's the very last stage where it looks all pretty, right?
Okay.
So if any of these coats are installed and you have flashing that's missing, something like that, then water can just kind of seep in and fester, in other words, right? So, well, what happens? Why is there a vapor barrier, some people would ask, if it's non-permeable? Well, there's still house air and flow with that, right? So at the bottom of the stucco is something called weep screed. S-C-R-E-E-D, and that's a drainage system.
Okay.
One of the common problems I will see and report on are landscaping material, debris that is stacked up at the bottom of the house, the exterior. And it's almost always overlooked because people just don't know about it.
Right.
But what can happen, even landscapers do it a lot. I have a landscaper.
I see it a lot on inspection
You
reports.
got it, yeah, almost every one. So if you block that drainage system, in other words, that can create problems. Okay. Now, the most common problem with the stucco is going to be water penetration, moisture damage, and that damage is going to be visible for the most part. Most of the time anyway. So cracks are going to be very common with stucco. Right? Most houses,
they are common.
Yeah,
see them all the time.
All the time. And if you see cracks at the stucco, it's not an immediate concern because houses do shift. So some cracking is fine. So there are indicators if there's hidden moisture. Right. The indicators for me are going to be offset cracking. Right. So if you see a crack that's protruding, that means something's going on there and it's swelling.
That's good to know.
Right.
Yeah.
Spiderweb cracking. So if you see a whole bunch of different cracks that are intersecting, that usually is not a good sign.
But just a crack that's
one
flat.
Crack, that's fine. Now you do want to make sure you get that sealed. When you get it sealed, it's going to prevent any water from that entry point. Right. So when you have offset cracking, that is indicative of the wall sheathing that we mentioned getting wet. It's just like cardboard. If you get it wet, it starts to swell.
Okay.
And when it swells, it pushes out, and that's where you get the cracking from. So you do want to have that investigated if you see any of those kind of cracks. And there are a couple different ways that we can kind of determine if there is moisture. One is the obvious, moisture meter.
Yeah, moisture meter. Right.
Now, because we live in a very unique area called the Lowcountry, we have a very high humidity content in the air, and that can kind of throw off some of the readings with moisture meters, right? So you have to get a baseline and see if there are any anomalies.
Okay.
Another tool that we deploy is infrared thermographic imaging, or cameras. So that can help determine if there's moisture behind the stucco. Doesn't necessarily mean that we can see it, but it can. It has to do with emissivity and resistivity. It's hard to say.
That's very good.
Very hard to say.
Yeah.
So, but it is an indicator. So in other words, if I see on the camera that there's an anomaly,
Right.
and then I put a moisture meter on that same area and there's a moisture anomaly,
Right.
that says to me there's moisture present. Can I guarantee that? No, I cannot, because then further investigation needs to be done.
Okay.
Now, a licensed home inspector in South Carolina, we are not allowed to further investigate, which would be drilling holes, removing components,
Right.
damaging a home. We're not allowed to do that, so you'd have to have a licensed contractor go in and do that investigation for sure.
Would you say that down here the stucco's an issue? Forget about the problems in Sun City, just normally.
If we exclude Sun City, I believe there was even a class action lawsuit there.
There was.
It is going to be no different than any other exterior. You're going to have improper installation. That's just how it works. You build a house, a lot of these components, they're going to be flawed. Is it going to be a big percentage of the time? No, not at all. But I would still say there's going to be problems with installation of every component on a home. That's why we want to make sure that those installations are done properly.
So you're doing your moisture meter on all stucco houses?
As if I see any cracks.
Okay.
If I see cracks at all, and I'm going to make sure that it's a consistent reading throughout the exterior with my moisture meter.
Okay.
And so in other words, if I'm reading 30% in non-suspect areas, and then all of a sudden near a crack somewhere in that area it jumps to 60%,
right?
That's a pretty big indicator. There's something different, right? There's an anomaly there.
A lot of people, when I drive up to a house, they go, "Oh, stucco," and I'm going, "No, it's not like that, because it's a good product."
It really is. It's one of the best exterior claddings that can protect your home.
Yeah.
A lot of people they like the composite material, which is a great material. I don't use name brands, but there's a James Hardy, he makes a good material. So it does decay, it does deteriorate. A lot of people, they think, well, that's good, it's one time, one and done. That's not true. If you don't protect your house from water, it's going to deteriorate just like stucco will.
Yeah, the lawsuit in Sun City, it was, when we got here the second time around, it was 2016, and I was learning Sun City, and they said, "Oh, there's a lawsuit in affected houses."
Mm-hmm.
I said, "Gee, how many?" 3,000. So anyway, you drive through the streets sometimes, you see the whole side of the house is off.
That whole side.
And they settled it.
Mm-hmm.
They paid people.
They did.
Some people went on cruises.
That's exactly right.
Some people didn't.
Some people did not address the problem. That's true, yes.
So I think, and I'm not picking on Sun City, I think it's have your home inspected by a professional, look for moisture readings, and that's aside from any lawsuits in Sun City and everything else. You're doing the same thing for every stucco house.
Absolutely,
right?
Yeah. So it doesn't matter to me if I'm on an inspection and it's stucco exterior. It changes my, my complete address right off the bat. I'm not going to be looking at, a lap siding or vinyl. I know it's stucco. I know exactly what to look for, what those indicators are. So, that also kind of brings me up. Some people might have questions about synthetic stucco, right? What is synthetic stucco? It's EIFS. EIFS is the kind of acronym, which is Exterior Insulating Finish System.
Wow.
And it is a big no-go. That started in the 1970s, became popular in the 1980s, and they stopped using it in the 90s because of so many problems from water damage. It's basically a piece of foam over the wood sheathing and then covered with a thin layer.
So how do you know
stucco.
if you've got that or regular stucco?
Great question. You can physically walk up to EIFS and you could just lean on it and it will press in like a sponge. That's right. Yeah.
Wow.
That's
all over the country?
Anywhere. Yeah. That's just how it works. Now also EIFS does not have expansion joints. Hard coat stucco is mandatory. We have expansion joints at every 18 feet.
Yeah.
Right? And that's to alleviate a lot of that cracking that we talked about, that settling and stuff.
Right.
So it's designed to crack at the ephes. So if you look at a house that's stucco and you don't see any lines, it's either ephes or it's not a wooden structure. It could be a concrete block, a masonry block. Then
Yeah.
you don't have to have those expansion joints.
Wow.
Yeah.
Most of the stucco houses that I've sold or have been aware of have been perfectly fine.
Yes.
I mean,
Yes.
I'm excluding, the problem lawsuit and all that, but just regular, because they're all over.
Yeah.
They're all over the place.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's one right there. So I wonder if he's got problems.
You want me to go take a look?
Yeah, we can get into it. Anyway, I really appreciate it.
You got
I'm
it.
going to put Scott's information down below in the video, and you can contact Scott directly. If you are looking at this and you're local and you have a stucco home, you may want to call Scott, and he can come take a look at it and give you a preliminary. with your
Absolutely. I'm
moisture
happy
meter.
to give advice if I can help. I will.
Yeah, that's right. So we've got answers for you, and it's one more video about home improvement. So we thank you for watching, and I appreciate it.
Ciao.
Ciao for now.